Hello everyone, I'm very glad that you listened to my story. Please give me a follow and like the video if you enjoyed it. Feel free to comment and provide feedback so I can improve the sound quality. Yes, we invite you to listen to part 7 of the series. Chapter 69, 65. The Scholar and the Fox. Chapter 69, 65. The Scholar and the Fox. On Green Cloud Peak. Xia Ji stroked the black fox. The ruthless and demonic black fox king was extremely docile at this moment. It gently rubbed against the hand. The rest of the vixens were dumbfounded. Was this still Black Fox King? Xia Ji lifted Black Fox King's chin with his finger and stared at the black fox. After consuming his mental energy, the power of Maitreya Zen illumination had been activated silently. Scenes appeared one after another. He could vaguely see a beautiful figure holding an oil paper umbrella in the forest in the spring rain. She walked to the scholar who was running in the rain and helped him block the rain. Then, the two of them walked together and talked and laughed. He saw the scholar studying under the lamp, but he was frowning because he was missing the books of the great scholar. Then, the beautiful figure took out many ancient books from somewhere and quietly placed them beside the scholar. Then, she lay down under the lamp and watched him study with a gentle expression. As she watched, she fell asleep. The scholar covered her with a thin blanket. He then saw that the two of them were extremely close and had nothing to say. The beautiful figure even confessed that she was a fox demon, but the scholar did not seem to care at all. After that, the scholar became famous and was named on the golden list. After that, by the long bridge, the scholar who had become an official would be transferred to a distant city. Not long after, just as the fox spirit was still in love, the entire fox clan was surrounded by the light monk and soldiers, and half of the clan was exterminated. This vixen was none other than Black Fox King. Back then, Black Fox King had witnessed the tragic deaths of her loved ones. In pain, she had wanted to find the scholar. She had walked a long way, carefully avoiding the encirclement of monks and all kinds of dangers. Then, when she was approaching the city, she saw an article. The article was simple and impactful, but it was full of blood. It was as if it was made in heaven, making people clap their hands and exclaim. However, the general idea was that animals should behave like animals and were not worthy of coming to the human world. Therefore, the author advised all the demons in the world to hide in the mountains and not come out to embarrass themselves. Because these were animals, they were not worthy. The person who wrote the article was that scholar. This article was vaguely in line with the thinking of a major Taoist sect. There must be different kinds of teachings. If everything can be brought to fruition, that would be too funny. It also secretly matched the thoughts of many nobles. After all, there were many strange stories about demons possessing bodies. Which nobles would see these things that should be obediently cooked and watched in cages come out and turn into humans? Because of this essay, the scholar was considered to have the correct path and correct thoughts. In addition, he had no background. Even though he was nurtured by others, he was now a high-ranking official. The scene that followed was incomparably dark and chaotic. It was mostly images of the extermination of the Fox clan, as well as the scholar abandoned her and her clan, pushing her and her clan into the abyss, and being high and mighty. From time to time, it flashed back in her delusional thoughts. All of this was the cause, and it had also become the effect of the current Black Fox King. Xia Ji closed his eyes and gently rubbed the fox's head. Suddenly, he asked, "What is the Skyfox transformation?" He was also quite curious about these cultivation techniques of the demon race. King Black Fox did not dare to hide anything and replied, "My Northern Fox clan has a total of 3 demon cultivation techniques. White Fox Immortal Technique, Cultivation Spirit. Fox Fire 3 Chi Refinement. Heavenly Fox Transformation, : This so-called cultivation method was said to have been taught by an ancient mighty figure. The power it obtained was actually charm, possession, spiritual impact, and control over other little foxes. The Chi cultivation method is the most authentic method of our fox clan. It is said that it was modified by a certain divine monk when it was passed down from ancient times. With the help of Buddhist scriptures, it obtained the great Zen heart and transformed the 3 fires of greed, anger, and infatuation into the righteous fox fire. It is a righteous and peaceful method suitable for fox demons to cultivate. If they continue to cultivate, they might be able to achieve positive results like humans. As for the skyfox transformation, it was an atavistic cultivation technique. The cultivation techniques of humans were all formed from the heaven-defying evolution of the postnatal realm. This technique was also a return to the innate state from the acquired state. However, this innate state was not the innate state of a human, but the appearance of an ancient demon. The skyfox transformation is to allow the evil aura in one's heart to grow and push oneself into a state of atavism. However, although this technique is most compatible with the fox body and is the easiest to cultivate, it is also the easiest to go crazy. Cultivators are also prone to violence and invite disaster. Therefore, it is now regarded as a forbidden technique by the fox clan. Xia Ji understood. Husiener cultivates her spirit. A wise heart trains the spirit. This black fox king was cultivating his body. However, the cultivation of spirit and chi had been improved by humans. Only this body tempering technique inherited the most violent and bloody side of the demon race, so it was banned. However, King Black Fox had suffered a heavy blow and cultivated this technique for revenge. Then what are you going to do now? Xia Ji asked. Master Black Fox blinked her big eyes and looked at the young prince. Her expression changed several times. She knew that the best answer she could give was to put down the butcher's knife, and then she was enlightened by the prince. However, the hatred in her heart was too strong, so she replied, I have no regrets. After saying this, she felt much more relaxed. She lived for hatred, so since she couldn't live, she would die for hatred. However, the prince in front of him said softly, Good. King Black Fox looked up in confusion. Kindness. What's wrong with wanting retribution? Xia Ji asked softly. What's wrong with you? Master of Black Fox was stunned and said, Your Highness, in surprise. However, she looked at the prince's eyes and saw that his pupils seemed to reflect the sky and the earth. His gaze was calm, but it was as if he could see through all the secrets in her heart. No matter how good her disguise was, how gorgeous her mask was, and how delicate her body was, in front of this youth, it was as if she had nothing. She was not wearing anything. That pair of eyes was quietly watching her obsession. Her nature, her soul, made her have nowhere to hide. Who are you going to kill? Xia Ji asked. Master Black Fox had already sworn to keep this secret in his heart and not tell anyone. However, since he had asked, she subconsciously said, Zhou Cao, the Marquis of Great Shang. Xia Ji had a rough impression of this person. He was an important official of the imperial capital and one of the aristocrats who followed the emperor to the south. To be able to climb to such a position in more than 20 years, this Zhou examination was not simple. He was definitely not a shallow scholar. He would achieve success in one go, and the black fox in front of him was one of those withered bones. Would you like to hear me recite a sutra? Xia Ji asked. When Black Fox King heard this, she understood. She had an epiphany. She maintained her original fox form and sat up. She clasped her claws together as if she was kneeling in front of the Buddha. Xia Ji wasn't afraid of her escaping or ambushing him. He turned around and went to the cave. He took out an ancient scripture and sat in front of Black Fox King. He flipped through the pages and began to recite. He read it seriously. Tathagata's perception and spiritual imprint imperceptibly seeped into the defenseless heart, and the thought in his heart just so happened to wrap around the little fox's hatred. She suddenly felt that she had a home. He was no longer fighting and living alone. Instead, it fused into a powerful mental power that made her feel safe. She could even vaguely sense the existence of others in this spiritual torrent. Such a change was no different from enlightenment. Her heavenly fox transformation, which had already reached a bottleneck, could now be upgraded to another level. Once he finished reciting, King of Black Fox had also converted. He wiped his tears with his claws and bowed to the ground. He reminded softly, I'm a fox that has cultivated into a human form, and I've also cultivated the atavism restriction art. Can your highness tolerate me? No discrimination, Xia Ji replied. King Black Fox was deeply moved and could not stand up to kowtow. Then, he transformed into the original appearance of an enchanting woman and lowered his head in front of the young man, saying respectfully, Please shave my hair. I haven't repaid you for your kindness, Xia Ji said. Keep the 3,000 threads of worry. Yes. Chapter 70, Chapter 70, 66. Coincidentally encountering an old friend, undercover demoness. Chapter 70, 66. Coincidentally encountering an old friend, undercover demoness. The vixens who came with Black Fox King looked at each other, not knowing what to do. King Black Fox waved his hand. Come and pay your respects to Buddha. Call me your highness, Xia Ji said. He didn't want to completely restrict himself to the path of Buddhism. All of you come to pay your respects to his highness. The group of enchanting and evil little foxes immediately ran over and knelt on the ground, shouting in unison, Greetings, your highness. The vixens of the evil faction shouted as they looked at the prince curiously. They did not understand why their Black Fox King had suddenly submitted. Since things had come to this, King Black Fox naturally did not hide the current situation anymore. He took the initiative and said, Your Highness, I have something to tell you. You were the one who lured the Monk of Light here, weren't you? Xia Ji pointed it out. King Black Fox was stunned for a moment before he said frankly, I don't want to see the demons walk down the wrong path. That's why I lured these monks here with Qi Shanjuan. We thought that once the Monk of Light came, we could take the opportunity to lead the demons here and leave. But now, however, he had lost control. First of all, there were more monks of light than he had expected. In addition, the righteous and evil paths received news that Thundersound Monastery had a great opportunity, so many people in Jianghu followed those monks of light. King Black Fox paused and looked at the prince in front of him. He said softly, Actually, this has nothing to do with his highness. How is it related to me? Xia Ji asked curiously. King Black Fox said, Your highness has established your might in the isolated city of the imperial capital. The martial arts you use are all Buddhist divine arts. The magic tools you use are Buddhist magic tools. Simply put, most of the magic tools and cultivation techniques are inherited from the Thundersound Temple. His Highness was only 17 years old, and he had not even been listed on the human, earth, and sky ranking. Now, he had stepped into the legendary stage and obtained the name of legendary. His Highness had defeated the Frost Giants, single-handedly defeated 30,000 troops, and even slaughtered 5,000 of them. With such strength, he was indeed qualified to become a legendary stage. Legends didn't have rankings, so no one dared to set up a ranking to distinguish between high and low. However, every legend had a few things that were passed down to the world, and the origin of each legend was mostly pure and innocent. However, a legend like His Highness, who had a mysterious source of strength, had aroused the curiosity of many people. Some time ago, there was news that His Highness's power came from the fated chants in the depths of Mount Meru. This news immediately attracted many people from the martial world. In addition, this time, Qi Shanjuan and I deliberately revealed the information to the Radiant Monk, so they all swarmed over. There were also sects that wanted to go to Thundersound Monastery to investigate directly. However, the monks of Thundersound Monastery had the golden body Arhat formation, which made those sects not dare to barge in. However, there were still some sects stationed outside Thundersound Monastery, confronting the monks of the temple. Although the Arhat formation is powerful, it can't be used frequently. It's used as a deterrent, so small-scale friction is still constant. Xia Ji digested the information. He knew that this was probably the work of a prince or princess. It was most likely the 8th princess, Xia Qingxian. He hadn't noticed it when he was young, but now that he looked at it, his royal sister's mouth was really sharp. She kept staring at him every day and ran around just to cause trouble for him. She could be considered a model worker. Anyway, no matter what he wanted to do, she would come out and destroy it. This was a professional slanderer of his sister. Sooner or later, he would catch her and ruthlessly. He was silent, thinking about how to lure this royal sister out. King Black Fox suddenly bowed and said sincerely, Your Highness, please bestow me with another Dharma name. Kill, Xia Ji said. Black Fox King was stunned. This was her original name. This is the name I've bestowed upon you. It was still the same name, but the King of Black Fox felt like it was officially recognized. What's the situation now? Xia Ji asked. Master Black Fox continued, the Tiger and Fox tribes are fighting against the Monk of Light. There should have been no problem with the fight, but Qi Shanjuan took away many tiger demons. This makes the fight very difficult. On the other side, most of the humans from the righteous and evil paths were helping the Monk of Light. A small portion of them had bypassed the main battlefield and were already heading towards the Fox tribe. They would probably arrive nearby soon. Although good and evil are irreconcilable, both sides are seeking opportunities, so they haven't made a move before they see the opportunity. Can you persuade Qi Shanjuan to go back and help? Xia Ji asked. King of Black Fox shook his head. His hatred for humans is far greater than mine. So, unless Wang Shanjuan agrees to break off the alliance with the humans, he will not help. But since it is His Highness' request, I will persuade him. Monk of Light. The righteous and evil factions. Qi Shanjuan. Make sure your little foxes investigate and report back, Xia Ji said after some thought. Yes. I understand. King of Black Fox left with a group of foxes. They were enemies when they came, but when they left, they had become Xia Ji's believers. Xiao Luo was dumbfounded. Then, Your Highness, I'm leaving too. Xia Ji smiled and nodded. After the foxes left, he walked back into the cave and calmed down. These days, besides reading the scriptures, he had also asked the foxes to send over some lamps, kasayas, and so on. Since all living beings were suppressed under the 10, the importance of the ritual implements was self-evident. Therefore, his daily life was filled with dullness. He read books, carved prayer beads, and tried to use Dipankara and Maitreya to make corresponding magical artifacts. The deep red 3 lifetimes Buddhist dhyana was enough for him to make 50 prayer beads at once. If he did it again before he went to bed, as long as he gritted his teeth and endured the heavy fatigue, he could make another 50 prayer beads before he went to bed. He wore Kia so Nard Clay Ana Mgnt just to nave more trump karas. In more than 10 days, he had made 1,080 cents beads, directly reaching the number of 1,080 spell realms. He had also used the magma wood as the bead head, and this did not make his hard work go to waste. He could feel that the power contained in it had undergone a qualitative change. The original prayer beads were split into numbers like 108 and 14 to display the basic Buddha's hand-binding effect. Since he was in a state of turmoil, Xia Ji quickly used the Maitreya dhyana to make the kasaya. According to the ancient records in the Thundersound Temple, the Maitreya dhyana could hold objects. If the function of the dhyana was as he thought, it would be much more convenient in the future. The trees want to be quiet, but the wind won't stop. There was not much time left. He had to hurry up and prepare the things that needed to be prepared. As he thought about it, he grabbed the dark gold kasaya and silently activated the Maitreya Zen before pressing his palm down. At ease, it was dark. The multicolored light in the mountain had completely disappeared. The mist that had long evaporated had swallowed the heaven and earth, leaving only a hazy area. In this hazy fog, whether it was the Monk of Light, the righteous path, the evil path, or the demon tribe, they all temporarily stopped fighting. Killer Black Fox King went to find Qi Shanjuan. The little foxes hid quietly in the forest, monitoring every move of the invading humans. This was the land of the demons, their home ground. Soon, a fox lying on the downwind of many roads faintly heard the voices of people coming from afar. In the fog. Is there fog in the mountains again? Everyone, be careful. We might be almost at the heart of the demon race. This place was originally the mountain of the ancient Buddha. There are many temples here. Quickly find a place to settle down. Otherwise, if the demons discover us in this wilderness, we will fall into a passive position. The team moved in the fog. Little Fox restrained her aura and moved back accordingly. An hour later, the team finally found an ancient temple to settle down in. There were quite a number of people, more than 30 of them. Most of them were young men and women. They were all dressed in the same clothes and were all from the same sect. Someone in the team found a slightly lower place to start a bonfire. Soon after, the group of people assigned the task of patrolling the night. They surrounded the bonfire to keep warm, and at the same time, they began to take out dry rations to eat. Some even took out the leftover meat from hunting on the mountain path and began to barbecue. The fire was burning brightly, but it was not ostentatious. The light could not even leave the temple. Unless one was very close to the temple, one would not notice it. A young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes was roasting a skewer of rabbit meat. As he roasted it, he turned his head to look at a beautiful girl who seemed to be unsociable in the corner. This senior sister was called Yan Ling. She was a little mysterious, but her strength was not bad. For years ago, she was sent to infiltrate the demonic sex forces and moved around the imperial city as the demonic sex demoness. After that, she created a strange skill and provided useful information, so that the righteous path was able to cooperate with the imperial court's prince to kill the generation of demonic bandit Zhang Xue. It could be considered a considerable contribution. However, something seemed to have happened after that. This senior sister became depressed, and then the sect felt that she was no longer suitable to be a spy. He arranged for her to return. IM's young swordsman Nad also secretly inquired about it. Any conclusion he obtained was, senior sister seemed to have been drugged by a certain dignitary and then fell asleep. Late at night, looking down from above. On Mount Meru, there were bonfires. In less than 10 days, it had already become a scene of many forces attacking. Regardless of geography, battle, or any other perspective, the seventh prince sitting on Bixiao Peak was truly sitting on a fishing platform. Smoke rose everywhere, but he had yet to enter the arena. Xia Ji felt a little tired and rubbed his forehead. However, the Mithriya Kasaya magic tool had been successfully made. This Kasaya had almost sucked all of his mental energy dry, but the result was truly satisfactory. The Dharma treasure of the dark gold Kasaya had 3 functions. Firstly, he could change his clothes as he pleased. Secondly, it was invulnerable to swords and spears, and difficult to be invaded by fire and water. Thirdly, it could store items. He sensed that it could store about 1 cubic meter of things, but that was enough. Then, with a wave of his Kasaya, the prayer beads and the lamp made by Dipankara Zen disappeared. With another wave of his Kasaya, the bookshelves were instantly emptied. Clearly, as long as the Kasaya swept past an ownerless object, it could absorb it according to the thoughts of the Kasaya's owner. There was no chance of accidental absorption. After doing all this, Xia Ji waved the Kasaya and draped it over his body. With another thought, the Kasaya instantly turned into a dark golden cloak that fitted his body. He walked to the top of the high cliff that was shrouded in the night fog and looked down at the stars and lights in the distance. In these 10 days, he had gained a lot of things. It was indeed worthy of being the inheritance of the ancient Thunderclap Temple. Perhaps it was time to leave the mountain. Chapter 71, 67. Breaking the Golden Light Barrier with a Finger, 1. Chapter 71, 67. Breaking the Golden Light Barrier with a Finger, 1. Senior sister, have a piece of rabbit meat. The young man with sword-like eyebrows and starry eyes walked to the side of the girl in the corner of the temple. Young people always had a good impression of beauties. Senior sister was indeed very beautiful, so even if there were rumors that she had been violated, he would only feel sympathy and comfort, but not disgust. Yan Ling was holding her sword. A white fish-shaped pendant hung around her neck. The head of the fish was round and tilted in a clockwise direction. The tail of the fish was quite sharp. A red string passed through the hole and stuck to her snow-white skin. She heard the shout and saw the handsome young man in front of her. The young man smiled at her and was about to sit beside her. However, the sword in Yan Ling's right hand suddenly spun and blocked where he was about to sit. Senior sister, what do you mean? The youth was stunned. Don't come near me, Yan Ling said coldly. In an instant, the killing intent around her was very dense. The disciples who were surrounding the bonfire in the distance sneered. The sound of conversation could be heard. Isn't it just a pair of broken shoes? Your body isn't clean anymore. What are you so smug about? Who is this Ling Ao Ling? Showing off too. His cultivation technique is neither good nor bad, what is there to be proud of? Another female disciple waved at the young man and said with a smile, Junior brother Dong, come back. You've been in our Green Cliff Mountain Palace for so long. Don't you know the reputation of this senior sister Yan? Yan Ling raised her head abruptly. The female disciple pretended not to see her. Everyone pretended not to see her. No one liked someone who didn't bow to reality. When you've suffered, you should show pain. When you've been defiled, you should show inferiority. Who are you putting on this cold and arrogant look for? Junior Marshal Brother Dong ran back and sat by the bonfire. He explained, one saw senior sister Yan there alone, so I gave her a skewer of roasted meat. the female disciple lectured him softly. Senior Sister Yan's shrewdness is very deep. She's a wanton person. Otherwise, why would she sneak into the demon sect and disguise herself as a demon? Otherwise, how could she have fallen into such a trap? She was drugged with an aphrodisiac and had her body taken away. When she came back, she didn't care about our kindness and pretended to be arrogant. Someone else chimed in, yes, yes, yes. Isn't it just a body being taken away? It's common for martial artists like us to stay in the first realm for a few years. I've never seen anyone so depressed. It's been almost 3 years. Senior Yan is too narrow-minded. Keep your voice down. After all, she's the senior sister of a demoness. Demonesses like to pretend to be pure and do dirty things. In the distance, Yan Ling suddenly stood up, and many people around the bonfire immediately looked at her warily. I'm going out to get some fresh air, Yan Ling explained softly. She walked out of the temple that was lit by fire. As soon as she walked out, she suddenly felt a strange and charming laughter coming from afar. Swoosh 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 swoosh. A pink figure passed by her. The fragrant wind blew, making people feel a little dizzy. The person walking towards her was a young man who was as handsome as a demon. The color of the young man's pupils formed a vortex, instantly causing a strange desire to arise in Yan Ling's heart. All the male and female disciples in the room seemed to have hallucinations. The vixens giggled. Their seduction skills were natural and could drag people into the depths of their desires. Under a surprise attack, they had the upper hand. As expected, many male disciples in the room had already wrapped themselves around the vixens, and the female disciples from before had already begun to undress themselves. The white fish accessory on Yan Ling's chest suddenly flashed, and she felt a chill in her head as she hurriedly took 2 steps back. At this moment, a golden light suddenly burst out from the temple. The moment the golden light condensed, a hand seal condensed from a phantom and a rapid incantation sound appeared. Immediately after, the golden light condensed for a short while and carried a strong wind as it rapidly expanded into the surroundings. In an instant, it transformed into a golden wall barrier that blew all the foxes out of the door. Inside the temple, the eyes of the middle-aged man leading the group regained clarity. He looked at the broken necklace and then at the men and women wrapped in demonic chi outside the house. He hurriedly raised his sword and shouted angrily, "The demons are attacking. Be alert." The other men and women hurriedly tidied up their clothes. They felt a lingering fear in their hearts. They stood up and grabbed their swords, confronting the fox demons outside the door. Yan Ling used her movement technique to retreat a certain distance and look outside the door. Outside the door, the young girl was charming and the young boy was devilish. They had already revealed their tails without holding back and were sweeping them, while their claws grabbed the golden membrane. The black demonic chi would occasionally hit the barrier, making a sizzling sound. The thick golden color of the barrier was also like cold ice meeting soup, slowly wearing away. However, every time it was worn away, the surrounding golden color would immediately rush over to make up for it. The idea of piercing through one part and breaking the entire barrier was obviously not feasible. They had to use their demonic aura to block out all the golden light before they could enter. They did not know what the necklace was, but it released a lot of golden light. The fox demons used their demonic aura to block it for a long time, but it was only a little worn out. Inside the temple, there was no sound at all. Everyone solemnly formed a formation, holding long swords in their hands. They were waiting for the golden barrier to shatter, then they would immediately charge over, not giving those fox demons the chance to use their seduction techniques again. As time passed, the initial fear of the people in the temple slowly recovered. Strangely, the golden light became thicker, as if it could feel the spiritual energy of the person inside the light barrier. The golden light would be thicker when the chi was strong, and the golden light would be weaker when the chi was weak. The fox demons gave up trying and retreated. It was empty outside the house, and everyone heaved a sigh of relief. The middle-aged leader of the Green Cliff Manor carefully put away his weapon and said solemnly, "The interior of the demon race is very dangerous. Quickly circulate your chi and rest. Pay attention to your duty. Once the morning fog dissipates, we'll leave this place immediately." "Marshal Uncle Lu, what is this chi shield?" "It's a gift from the Manor Lord. He said that he can protect us at a critical moment." "Everyone, don't worry. The Manor Lord has a good relationship with a Taoist. He has obtained some Taoist treasures, and now he has given me more than just this necklace. The middle-aged leader calmed the morale of the army, but he was smiling bitterly in his heart because this necklace was the only treasure left, but if he said it, these disciples would probably panic. For martial artists, the power of the mental world was very important. It was related to whether they could break through during cultivation, and whether they could perform normally or even beyond normal in battle. Moreover, the middle-aged men could barely recognize that this golden light was actually a guiding curse. The core was the golden light curse of the Taoist sect. Most of the power of the golden light came from their own bodies, which was why the fox demon could not break it. At least it's safe tonight. But is there really a great opportunity in Mount Meru? Just as the middle-aged leader was thinking about this, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from outside the room. He immediately became alert and grabbed the hilt of his sword again. Some of the disciples on duty also looked outside the room vigilantly. The person's face could not be seen clearly. He stood in front of the door as if he was blocked by a golden barrier. The middle-aged leader felt a little puzzled. This barrier was connected to the mental energy of all the disciples within it. As long as this energy did not break, the golden barrier would not break for the time being. It was impossible for outsiders to enter. Therefore, he was not too nervous. He was just a little curious about who it was. After all, he did not have the demonic aura of a demon. Ding! His finger touched the golden light barrier. In an instant, the middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. The disciples of the Green Cliff Manor felt a piercing sound in their heads. Whether they were on duty or resting, they could not help but exclaim. The hearts of these 30-odd people felt a heavy pressure pressing down on them. All their spirit and fighting spirit were broken by this finger. Chapter 72, 68. Past. 1. Chapter 72, 68. Past. 1. That finger was like a towering mountain. It was like a galaxy pressing down. It was as if a divine god was pointing his finger. The golden light barrier shattered instantly, turning into specks of firefly light that scattered in all directions. The bonfire was swept up by the cold wind. In a flash, the youth outside the door had already stepped over the threshold of the dilapidated temple. He was wearing a mysterious dark gold cloak, his black hair was disheveled, and there was no evil intent on his face. His eyes were as calm as the sea. His gaze swept across the crowd before landing on Yen Ling. "Come out." Although the middle-aged man was shocked, he still cupped his fists and said, "I am Lu Feng of the Green Cliff Manor. May I know who you are?" The young man didn't even care about him. He had personally come here for one person. This was the reason why he had been placed under house arrest after he had obtained the cheat. He recognized this person, and it wasn't just because they had sex in a daze. If it was just a blur, then even the dumbest person could see through it. It was precisely because it was half true and half false that he was placed under house arrest in the small pavilion. He spent spring, summer, autumn, and winter reading through the scriptures and books. Yen Ling glanced at him and walked over. At the same time, she replied, "All right." Lu Feng didn't dare to stop him. Although this person was a youth and didn't give off much of an aura, he was already terrified. Moreover, Yen Ling clearly immured this mysterious youth. The other disciples of the Green Cliff Manor did not dare to stop them. They just looked at each other curiously. How did Senior Yen know such a person? Who is this young man? I think he must be a big shot. He shattered the golden barrier with a finger. I am still trembling in fear and only feel that my mind is in chaos. Me too. All the disciples had a vague guess. The golden light barrier was supported by the spiritual energy of each of them, but the person had actually broken it with a single finger. Didn't this mean that the combined spiritual energy of all of them was just dust under the clouds to the youth, the light of fireflies under the brilliance of the sun and the moon? Senior Sister Yen had been undercover in the demonic sect, turned into a demoness, and was then raped. After returning to the righteous path, she had not had a single friend for 3 years. How could she know such a person? Outside the door, Yen Ling lowered her head and walked beside the young man. You should wear a mask so that they can't see your face. No need. If the world finds out that you're with the demon race, it'll be terrible. I know. Then why didn't you hide? Isn't it the same if you change your identity? With your power, if you make up a story about someone who doesn't exist, many people will believe you. Only by keeping the feathers clean could they have room for negotiation. You were never an ordinary person, and you were born to be a noble. Why can't you understand the truth that even a small noble can understand? I don't understand. As the two of them talked, they walked to a cliff. The moon was bright and clear, and waves of fog hit the mountains and valleys like tides. Why did you set me up? Do I use my body to deal with you? Yen Ling smiled bitterly. If you don't believe me, then just push me down from here. Even if you don't push me down, I'm just an ant to you. If you want to kill me, then kill me. She closed her eyes. She was the demoness who had an affair with Xia Ji 3 years ago. Xia Ji put his hand on her back and said softly, "Tell me, I really can do it." Yen Ling closed her eyes tightly and sighed softly. Xia Ji's palm moved forward slowly, bringing Yen Ling along. 1 inch. Yen Ling bit her lip. Then, she suddenly leaped forward and was about to jump into the bottomless abyss. However, as soon as she moved, she was caught by the big hand, so she did not move at all. Xia Ji said, "You jumped on your own. You were lucky. But if I push you, you won't be lucky. Tell me." Yen Ling did not seem to want to recall the past, but she still thought about it and said softly, "You wrote me a letter asking me to meet you on the pleasure boat. I went and fainted after entering the door. I vaguely remember that you and I were in bed. Then, you were taken away and I was imprisoned. However, someone broke out of the prison and saved me, telling me to return to the Green Cliff Manor as soon as possible." This was the end of the story. In the Imperial City, I was just a chess piece that the Righteous Path buried in the demon sect. I helped the Righteous Path provide information. I was the one who provided the information for Zhang Xuehe's death. But I didn't do anything to you, and I didn't want to harm you. Even if I was a spy, I had no choice. My parents died early, and I didn't have the protection of my elders. I could only work hard. Do you think it was easy for me? Besides, I've known you for a long time. You hid your identity and came to the streets of the Imperial City, and I got to know you. If I could really participate in the circle of framing a prince, how could I be an ordinary righteous disciple? How could I be so easily found and captured by you? Aren't those people who framed you afraid that I'll expose everything?" Xia Ji suddenly reached out and grabbed her chin. He looked into her eyes, and the Zen of Maitreya Zen was activated. He felt a great sadness. As for the source, he had also seen it. It was on the pleasure boat, and the picture, there was only him and the girl in front of him, entangled on the bed. The scene was extremely beautiful. However, Xia Ji watched quietly. Suddenly, a bright lamp floated up. Chapter 73, 68. Past, 2. Chapter 73, 68. Past, 2. The bright lamp shone brightly, breaking all illusions. Under the illumination of the light, the scene suddenly burned into ashes, and another scene appeared. On the screen, there were 3 people on the pleasure boat. He and Yen Ling were sitting opposite each other in the pleasure boat. Their eyes were dull and they did not go to the Witch Mountain to do it together. There was another young girl sitting inside the pleasure boat. Her black hair fell to her shoulders, her skin was sparkling and translucent, and her white clothes were like a fairy, ethereal and ethereal. Her eyes carried a hint of otherworldly luster. The young girl's actions were exactly the same as Yen Ling's. She raised her hand, and Yen Ling raised her hand. She shook her head, and Yen Ling shook her head. Xia Ji's expression changed. He recognized this girl. She was the second princess, Xia Yun. She was only 16 years old 3 years ago, so she couldn't wait to experiment on him after receiving the ancestral dragon's enlightenment. So, he didn't have an affair with Yen Ling. At this moment, Yen Ling's expression suddenly changed. Her sorrowful look was gone, and she smiled. Originally, I wanted to have a grand and spectacular love break with this little brother. Did this little brother see through it so quickly? How boring. If you were to obediently pretend to be stupid, this relationship of a short absence making the heart grow fonder might continue. Isn't it good to let royal sister weave a gentle home for you? Yan Ling's eyes became a little misty, but there was a hint of otherworldly color. Xia Yun, Xia Ji said lightly. As expected, I've been seen through. Yan Ling did not deny it and said directly, however, this young girl is ignorant of the affairs between men and women. She really thought that she had an affair with seventh brother. She is indeed innocent. Since you've seen through her, I'll let you deal with her as you please. Killing her won't cause me much loss. Even if he slept with her, she would still be a virgin. In any case, she has long been used up as a chess piece to frame seventh brother. She is useless. This time, I specially sent her over to see how capable I am now. Yan Ling paused and suddenly smiled. However, little brother, since I can leave a soul fragment in her body, will I leave a soul fragment in the bodies of those you trust, such as my innocent ninth sister, Xia Yun, why are you targeting me? However, the second princess did not answer. After saying this, the light in Yan Ling's eyes disappeared and she returned to her original sorrowful appearance. Xia Ji closed his eyes, and the image of the second princess appeared in his mind. He was valiant, dressed in white like an immortal, and was ethereal. He entered the Howren sect and cultivated the nine-cloud treasure mirror. But now, it seemed that all of this was an illusion. This second princess was not normal. Moreover, she was the third prince's sister and consort Wan's daughter. Now, it had inadvertently formed a 4-on-4 situation. The second princess, the third prince, the fifth prince, the eighth princess, the crown prince, Little Su, and the fourth princess, Xia Ji. Xia Ji and the crown prince were biological siblings. This pair should not be able to escape. Xia Ji had no reason not to help her biological brother. While he was thinking, Yan Ling had already turned her head and left his hand. Do you have anything else to say? After saying that, Yan Ling waited, hoping to hear some answers. Xia Ji looked at her deeply and said, no more. Then I'll go back. Yan Ling sighed softly, turned around, and ran back the way she came. Soon, a black shadow crawled behind Xia Ji. Your Highness, Killer has already persuaded Qi Shanjuan. He has already gone to the Tiger tribe to help defend against the Monk of Light and the righteous and evil paths who are preparing to fish in troubled waters. How did you persuade it? I was very familiar with Qi Shanjuan, and then I said that His Highness was not an ordinary human. Qi Shanjuan was very curious about how His Highness could make me submit wholeheartedly, and he was willing to believe me. Besides, the tiger demons he brought with him hated the light monk and wanted to go and help him. The killer Black Fox King was reporting. As a vixen who was proficient in the affairs of men and women, she keenly sensed that the relationship between His Highness and the girl who had just left was not ordinary. Therefore, she asked again, what should we do with the 30 or so people from Jianghu on the mountainside? I've already moved all the books from Bixiao Peak, Xia Ji said. If they want to find opportunities, let them go. Take them around a few more times. The killer Black Fox King was speechless, but she did not have any objections to His Highness moving the scriptures. She reckoned that Huixin would not have any objections either, so she said, yes. Xia Ji looked up at the bright moon in the sky, and the sea of fog under his feet was endless. His left hand and right hand suddenly spread out in the night. The qi of 9 yang turned into the shadow of 9 small suns, which were evenly distributed. However, due to some great restriction, the distance between the first yang and the last yang of the 9 acupoints was the distance between heaven and earth. No matter what, it could not form a circle and form a circle of life and death. However, he had already deduced the mental power of the Buddhist sect to the extreme of being a human. If one were to determine the level, then he was now at level 9.5. If he reached the 10th level, he would be able to reach the heavens in a single step and evolve into a transcendent. The boost from his mental power had also helped him progress in his chi fortification technique. At this moment, he had a faint realization in his heart. If the first yang and the 9th yang were to be fused together in the 9 yang, which were originally distributed in a linear manner, became a circle, then it would be the 10th level of the 9 yang true chi. Also, the 10th sun. The power of Zhenqi at the 10th level would be far greater than before. The destructive power of the 10th sun would also be extraordinary, because it had already stepped out of the peak of a human. Then, where could he obtain the skill orb of the 9 suns true chi? He had read in some books that different monasteries, even different Taoist sects, and different Confucian sects had different top-notch legacies. Both Buddhism and Taoism valued magic tools and life cultivation to train the body and qi. Buddha was biased towards karma and wish, so the Buddha's hand could turn people into ashes, but it would not hurt a single flower or grass. Taoism emphasized the primordial spirit and the 5 elements, so it emphasized talismans and strange methods to capture spirits. Even the method that Xia Yun had obtained from some unknown enlightenment should be a Taoist primordial spirit method. The top inheritance of Thunder Sound Temple was the spiritual inheritance of Buddhism. The past, the present, and the future were connected until the Dharmakaya of 24 heads and 18 hands appeared. Then, where was the top-notch inheritance of fire? His expression changed as he suddenly remembered the monk the Crown Prince had mentioned. He formed hand seals, and heaven and earth burned. Then, he remembered the wooden pestle Buddha fire that Black Fox King used. This was the attack item of the Monk of Light. However, the Buddha fire that was generated was somewhat similar to the 9 Suns True Qi Great Light Temple. With a flash of inspiration, Xia Ji looked down at the moonlight fog sea beneath his feet and muttered to himself, "I've used countless extremes to build it. I don't believe that it can't help me ascend to the heavens. P.S. After reading it, please give me a recommendation vote." Chapter 74, 69. Besieged, 1. Chapter 74, 69. Besieged, 1. On the cliff. Xia Ji looked at the fog sea. He roughly understood that the Dharma plane was the ceiling of human power. Under this ceiling, magical artifacts, mystic arrays, and other external objects were the main objects. Unless he broke through this ceiling, his individual cultivation would always be poor. Although he had not encountered it yet, disasters were born in the light, and death was born in ignorance. If one did not think far ahead, there would be immediate worries. He had to be prepared for danger in times of peace. Martial arts were like the ancient martial arts and even killing techniques of his previous life, and spiritual artifacts were like guns, ammunition, and even nuclear bombs. No matter how strong ancient martial arts were, could they be stronger than missiles? As for the realm and power of this world, he decided to ask Huixin again when he had the chance. Huixin should be the fox who had lived the longest in the Northern Fox clan. She had seen things for hundreds of years, so she definitely knew more than a human general who had lived for decades. Xia Ji was wearing a dark golden cloak. He swept his divine sense across the Tathagata prayer beads and the burning lamp in the cloak. 1008 was not enough. He needed 3000 worlds. One string of 3000 worlds was not enough. He had to prepare dozens of strings to be safe. Dawn finally arrived. He walked on the mountain path. The cold wind was like a bone-scraping knife, but fortunately, the sun had risen, and the light of the deep winter made people warm. As far as his eyes could see, the moonlight fog had turned into a sea of burning sunlight. From time to time, handsome and charming vixens ran over to report the situation to him. He had already enslaved Huxian, or subdued Huixin, and the Black Fox King. Therefore, the lesser demons and even the entire Fox clan had naturally become his. The Fox demons imitated the guards in their impression and reported coquettishly. "Your Highness, the Tiger tribe has reported that Wang Shanjuan and the Monk of Light are in a stalemate." Qi Shanjuan, who came to reinforce them, suddenly appeared and disrupted the formation of the monk soldiers. "Your Highness, the 32 humans at the foot of the mountain have left the temple last night and are heading towards the direction of Green Cloud Mountain. Let them go." "That. Your Highness, what is the relationship between you and those human Lady Yen?" The little vixen blinked and looked curiously at this mysterious and powerful prince. "You may leave." Xia Ji didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So what if he was reporting? "Reporting to Your Highness, old ancestor Huixin came out of seclusion late last night and has successfully grown a second tail. Her strength has greatly improved. She is grateful for Your Highness' help and sincerely hopes to receive Your Highness' teachings again. However, the situation is urgent and old ancestor Huixin is unable to come to see Your Highness. Old ancestor is deeply regretful about this. Now, old ancestor has already gone to the Tiger tribe overnight." Xia Ji pulled the vixen back and asked, "You're a fox. Why are you talking like this?" "I learned it from books," the little vixen said proudly. "I'm the one who's better at it. I memorized the sentence structure." Xia Ji couldn't help but laugh as he looked at the charming girl in front of him. What if you don't learn this? What do you say? The little vixen thought for a moment and said, old ancestor Huaxin actually grew a second tail. But she didn't have time to see you. She had to help the tiger clan fight. Just say that in the future. Xia Ji could not help but rub the little vixen's head when he saw how cute she was. The vixen immediately began to flirt with him, blinking her eyes. If she could seduce this prince and have sex with him, she would be able to brag about it to her sisters for a long time. Xia Ji laughed out loud. Go ahead. The little vixen replied with an "oh" and felt a little depressed. As expected, His Highness was not someone that a little vixen like her could seduce. It seemed that she had to study hard and become a big vixen as soon as possible. Thus, she turned into a shadow and disappeared into the desolate forest in the deep clouds. Looking at these little foxes, Xia Ji suddenly remembered something. He resisted the frost giants and saved a city of civilians and refugees from the west. In the end, it was just some political tactics that quickly led to rumors. Little Su said that most people were not like that, but it still made him feel cold, although his heart rarely warmed. Compared to those people, these monsters that were cultivated by animals were much cuter and more real. Humans had no human feelings, but these monsters repaid kindness and revenge. They were straightforward and did not beat around the bush. His request was immediately passed down. Many little vixens understood his request, so the report became direct. Your Highness, the Monk of Light was attacked by the 2 mountain lords of the Tiger clan. He actually ran back. Soon, he said, Your Highness, it's over. Qi Shanjuan. It actually ambushed Wang Shanjuan from behind. How could it do this? On Xia Ji's path to the Tiger tribe, the more he got closer, the more information he received. Although he had not appeared on the battlefield, he could vaguely imagine the situation at the front line through the description of the light monk by Master Black Fox and the report of the little foxes. The tiger demon was valiant. He grabbed his heavy weapon and charged down the mountain with the morning wind, wanting to kill the invading monks. The addition of Qi Shanjuan increased the strength of the tiger tribe by a lot. As a result, the Monk of Light and the people in the martial world who followed him were caught off guard and were forced to retreat. However, this shock was only temporary. The light monks waved their demon-subduing wooden pestles, which absorbed the demonic chi of the demons and weakened them. Once the demons weakened, many warriors would rush over to surround and kill them. From time to time, the monks would throw the wooden pestle that was filled with demonic chi far away. The wooden pestle would explode in the quiet air and flow out the burning Buddhist fire. These Buddhist fires would burn when they encountered demonic chi. Once they landed in a place where the demon race was concentrated, it would cause great trouble. The tiger demons charged forward while the fox demons assisted from the side. However, the Monk of Light was wrapped in a net. The martial artists of the pugilistic world had also filled the net tighter. The mountain path was not wide to begin with, so the power of the Buddha fire from the wooden pestle would be magnified many times. Those wooden pestles could be mass-produced, so they should not be spiritual artifacts. They were more like disposable tools that were made with secret techniques and had the characteristics of spiritual artifacts, because King Black Fox said that there were many such wooden pestles. Just as Wang Shanjuan's expression turned fierce, he grabbed 2 steel machetes and led the demons to fight like a whirlwind. At the critical moment, Qi Shanjuan, who was behind him, stabbed him fiercely, causing him to be seriously injured. Perhaps these 2 tiger demons had a brotherly conversation before the expedition, saying things like, I'm very happy that you're back, but they betrayed him. Your Highness, it's fortunate that Ancestor Huaxin arrived. She forced Qi Shanjuan to retreat and saved Wang Shanjuan. However, the tiger tribe was defeated and many demons died. Your Highness, the tiger tribe has already retreated 2 mountains back to their tribe. If the Monk of Light attacks, he will be finished with a wave of Buddha fire. The little vixen's voice was filled with despair. She had been awakened from the fear of half of her race being destroyed by the Buddha fire 20 years ago. Phi. Your Highness, you left so quickly, the tiger clan's territory was already close. The sounds of fighting and cursing could be heard from afar. And the fire of Buddha rose from the west. It was as if the light had killed all the monsters in the world. The summer pole comes from the east. His footsteps were like the war drum of killing, sounding quietly. With the green mountain as the drum body and the human heart as the drum surface, Tathagata could feel it, and all living beings knew his thoughts. I'll kill. Chapter 75, 70. Blind, shameless, 1. Chapter 70. Blind, shameless, 1. Nun Huaxin gave birth to second last, and 6 balls of foxfire danced around her. The foxfire was bright on the outside and dark on the inside, like floating fireflies. From time to time, monks and martial artists would rush over, but before they could rush over, a ball of foxfire would fly out and attack these birds that stood out. The monks and martial artists did not dare to block the foxfire. They all desperately used their movement techniques to escape, but the foxfire followed closely behind. It would only extinguish after they were far away. If the monk or martial artist's movement technique was not good, they could only take the foxfire head-on. However, the foxfire was very strong. Once it was hit, most of them would bleed from their 7 orifices and their meridians would be broken. If they could block the attack, they would be invaded by the demonic chi inside the foxfire and become delirious. Unless they held a demon-subduing wooden pestle to absorb the demonic chi, they would not be able to block a ball of foxfire. Huaxin was expressionless, but her movement speed was extremely fast. In a short distance, she seemed to disappear and appear in a flash, then disappear and reappear again. Meanwhile, balls of foxfire appeared around her and flew towards the approaching enemies. The lost foxfire can soon be reborn again. She had suppressed a large group of people with the strength of a fox. Anyone who relied on the former would either die or be injured. Behind her, a bald, burly man who was more than 2 meters tall was clutching his chest. Blood was flowing out from his fingertips. This burly man was Wang Shanjuan. He sat on a rock and looked into the distance with a fierce gaze. The rest of the fox spirits and tiger demons were engaged in a fierce battle with the monks and warriors. The fog in the world dispersed. On the battlefield where the fox and tiger demons fought against the monks and martial artists, corpses were everywhere. The monk of light had already recognized that these two were the leaders of the fox and tiger clans. So, he had to capture the leader first. As long as he killed these two, the evil demons would all receive the punishment they deserved. The old monk in the lead had a benevolent expression on his face, and a giant red-striped tiger that was 20 feet long had actually become his mount. This was Qi Shanjuan. Behind the old monk, the yellow-robed monks held wooden pestles and moved with the old monk. There were more than 1,000 monks and nearly 100 wooden pestles. These wooden pestles had already absorbed enough demonic chi. If they were released at the same time, the Buddha flames created would be extremely terrifying. However, when he felt the quiet killing intent that emerged from the bottom of his heart, the old monk stopped and turned his head to look into the distance. On the mountain path where the fog had just dispersed, a young man wrapped in a dark gold cloak was walking over. Every step he took felt like he was stepping on everyone's heart, making their hearts beat faster or slower with his pace. As he got closer, his killing intent became more and more fierce. The old monk riding on the tiger could not understand. Although killing intent could be felt, it was the first time he had seen such a strong and real sensation. And this sensation actually contained a strong Zen intent, which made him even more curious. Thus, he stopped moving forward, put his palms together, and asked coldly, "This poor monk Kuwan, may I ask why you are helping the demon?" The two of them were very far apart, but this voice easily crossed space and spread out, reaching Xia Jit's ears. Xia Ji's voice was equally calm. "What's under your seat? If you receive my enlightenment, you will no longer be a demon," replied the old monk riding the tiger. Xia Jirun pointed at the giant red-striped tiger under the old monk and said coldly, "He hates people and kills everywhere. He raises evil spirits and attracts people, then turns into evil spirits." He returned to the tiger clan, but was disloyal to his clansmen and brothers. Not only did he not help at the critical moment, but he even heavily injured his own brothers from behind and led outsiders to exterminate the clan. "What kind of transformation did you order?" Then, he pointed at the bald man sitting on the huge rock. "He is the tiger tribe's Wang Shanjuan. He usually disguises himself as a mountain god and brings blessings to the people around him. He repairs bridges, kills bandits, and takes care of all the family matters. He may not be able to fulfill his requests, but he will do his best to do them." "What demon did you kill?" The old monk shook his head and looked disappointed. Sigh. This fellow Taoist doesn't seem to understand that only those who are enlightened by the Great Light Temple are good. Otherwise, they are evil. Don't tell me that you think that the Great Light Temple is unfair. Just as he was thinking about what to say, someone recognized Xia Ji and shouted, "He is the 7th Prince of Great Shang, the Divine Martial Prince, Xia Ji." The tiger-riding old monk revealed a look of understanding. He had understood everything. He shook his head and said, "The Prince of Great Shang actually colluded with the monster race. I'm just sorry. I heard that you've inherited the ancient heritage of Mount Meru's Thunder Temple, but you didn't carry it forward. Instead, you're shielding the demons. Isn't your highness afraid that you'll go to hell after death and not be able to become a human again because you don't have enough blessings in your next life? What a disgrace to Buddhism. Your highness, if you surrender, I can take you back to the mountain to become a monk and recite Buddha day and night to eliminate your sins." After saying this, the old monk smiled at the prince. Although the prince was powerful, in the era of ritual implements, he had many demon-subduing wooden pestles that had absorbed demonic chi. Even a legend could not deal with the power of these wooden pestles. Even if he had the ritual implements of the ancient Thunderclap Temple, he should not be able to block them. However, he had heard many legends about the prince. He clapped his hands and the monks behind him quickly dispersed. Even if the prince successfully used the giant golden Buddha's hand artifact, he would not be able to attack many people. "Your highness, be careful." When Huixin saw who it was, she hurriedly reminded him. The little vixens and tiger demons all looked at the person who had come. It was the first time many of the vixens had seen this mysterious and powerful prince. Xia Ji waved his hand and took out the prayer beads. Beads, 1008, symbolizing many Dharma realms. The old monk riding on the tiger was very proactive. He had been watching Xia Ji the whole time, and when he saw Xia Ji take out his magic tool, he roared, "Evil devil, go to hell." As soon as he finished speaking, the yellow-robed light monk behind him immediately chanted and pushed out the demon-subduing wooden pestle in his hand. Sounds of air being torn apart rang out. Little sparks flew out. As it rolled, the wooden pestle was already covered by the blazing golden Buddhist fire and disappeared. What filled the sky was the scorching sun of the next day. The scorching suns touched, connected, and fused in the air. The tiger demons and fox spirits raised their heads and saw the golden river that filled the sky pressing down from the sky. The weaker little demons could not look at the light directly, let alone react. Just like prisoners who had been imprisoned in the dark for more than 10 years, when they suddenly saw the scorching sun in front of them, the little demons only felt that their vision had turned black, and blood had already flowed down from the corners of their eyes. In the river where the golden Buddha fire gathered, faint Sanskrit sounds echoed. It was like the fear of heaven's might as it descended from the sky where the morning light had just risen. This was the Buddha fire that had destroyed half of the fox-tiger race 20 years ago. As long as it was stained with a trace of demonic chi, it would be the undying demon fire. Now that they were back, the demons only had fear in their eyes. In the distance, the tiger-riding monk put his palms together and closed his eyes to mercifully recite the incantation of rebirth. Since he was about to die, then he would be cleansed of his sins. Once he was cleansed of his sins, he would no longer be a monster. As a monk, he naturally needed to be merciful. Huixin's speed was extremely fast. When she saw hundreds of demon-subduing wooden pestles soaring into the sky, she had already turned into an afterimage. She grabbed Wang Shanjuan behind her with her left hand and moved back continuously at a flickering speed. However, this movement was still unable to escape the suppression range of the brilliant golden Buddhist fire river. She suddenly remembered that ever since the young prince came, the general here was no longer her. However, with such a terrifying power, other than hiding and fleeing, how could she deal with it? At this moment of life and death, she curiously turned her face to look at the Buddha-like prince. Xia Ji raised his hand. The prayer beads disappeared. He was holding a golden mountain in his hand. 5 elements Buddha mountain. The top of the mountain was at the bottom, and the bottom of the mountain was facing up, spanning nearly 1,000 feet. The mountain faces the river. The mountain was below, and the river was above. Heaven and earth were overturned. The mountains and rivers shook. Chapter 76, Destroy with one hand. Chapter 76, Destroy with one hand. Buddha River wants to annihilate this sin. Buddha Mountain rose up. If you suppress me from the sky, I will feel that the world is upside down. Therefore, the mountain fell from the sky and crashed into the Buddha River. Waves suddenly rise in the river. The Buddha fire surged, like layers of volcanic lava bursting out. The power contained within did not change the wind, did not ignite the trees, and did not affect all existences without karma. However, both humans and demons were panicking at this moment. They even felt a sense of frustration and fear that could not be suppressed. Xia Ji stood quietly on the toppled mountains and rivers. There are mountains on the river. He was on the mountain. He used a calm voice to read, "Evil, go and reincarnate." His voice was calm and peaceful. It was the same words that Kuwen had said earlier. Evil. Who was he talking about? The old monk's eyes revealed a hint of confusion, but he immediately understood. He was both shocked and angry. How could such a disobedient person have such a great affinity with Buddha? How could he be worthy of the inheritance of a magic tool like the Thundersound Monastery of the ancient Meru Mountain? Although the 5 elements Buddha Mountain didn't have the 5 elements, it was already a true mountain formed with a single palm. Immediately, his confusion turned into anger. The old monk sat on the evil demon and said, "You dare to protect the demons. You'll get your retribution." He wanted to say something more, but he could not help but stop because he could not say anything else. Or perhaps he had already suffered retribution. After a short confrontation between mountains and rivers, the Golden Buddha River had been overturned by this terrifying power. The raging flames of the Buddha Mountain had already completed its reversal. The river flows backward. The mountain suppressed him. It pressed down on the tiger-riding old monk, the monk of light, and the martial artists who were close to the prince. Qi Shanjuan almost exploded. His dangerous instinct made his reaction speed extremely fast. Just as the Buddha Mountain fell, his muscles tensed up and he carried the old monk and flew out of the range of the Buddha Mountain. The other monks and warriors also showed fear, but they only had time to narrow their pupils. They could only see the Buddha Mountain pressing down on them, but they could not react. Qi Shanjuan was like a whirlwind. As he ran, thunder rumbled, and the sand and blood on the ground were shaken up by this great force. Kuwen suppressed the confusion and anger in his heart and made his final reaction. He opened his hands and his genuine qi broke through his meridians. 9 streams of scorching genuine qi shot out from his 9 acupoints. 9 suns lined up in a row. Kuwen's hands turned into afterimages, supporting the sky. The scorching sun spun, turning into a powerful and vigorous genuine qi shield that enveloped him and Qi Shanjuan. It was obvious that the 9-Yang Heart Sutra was a technique of Great Light Temple, and this old monk had actually cultivated it to the pinnacle of the 9th level. However, could he escape just because he wanted to? Could he block it? Mountains and rivers press down 1,000 feet. His strength can destroy the city. The Buddha Mountain pressed down with its Buddha flames, suppressing everything with ease. Even the 9 suns' true qi shield was unable to block it. 1,000 feet of golden waves rose from the ground. They appeared in an instant and stopped at a soul-stirring scene before slowly disappearing. The light monk and the warrior who were suppressed revealed a pained expression. The old monk riding on the tiger was also pressed down by the edge of the mountain range, but his speed did not stop and he continued to run forward. Huixin was stunned. Her figure flashed and she wanted to chase after him. She could not let this old monk go. However, the beautiful nun of the Fox clan moved. The old monk and the evil demon he favored were turned into ashes. A gust of wind blew, and it was as if a lively sand painting had been casually called by a naughty child, turning it into dust between heaven and earth. The beautiful nun was instantly speechless. Her 2 white tails drooped down as she looked into the distance. In front of his eyes, in the place where the mountains and rivers were suppressed, all the Buddhist fire had disappeared, and all the enemies had also disappeared. Dust surged and scattered into the forest where the winter fog had just dispersed. The prince, who was wrapped in a dark gold cloak, turned around. As he turned around, the 1008 prayer beads in his left hand had already been put into the Maithrayakasaya. The sense beads had dimmed a little. It was obvious that they could not be used continuously today. Otherwise, the excessive consumption of the magic tool would shorten its lifespan. The martial artists outside the attack range of the 5 elements Buddha Mountain suddenly reacted. They turned around and used their movement techniques to escape from here. However, at this moment, many tiger demons and fox spirits had already dashed out. As he fled, he chased. The situation was reversed. However, looking down from the sky, he saw that many cultivators were still far away. When they heard the sound, they did not run in the direction of the demons. Instead, they turned around and fled towards the entrance. There was a mountain village to the north, and to the southwest was the true entrance to Mount Meru, where the 9 peaks were located. The fairies quickly sealed off the path to the nearby mountain village, and the rest chased after the mountain entrance. Xia Ji looked at the place where the old monk had turned to ashes. After a moment of silence, he suddenly took a step forward. In a few ups and downs, he had already gone far away. He looked down at the fiery red crystal in the middle of the ashes. Saraira. He lifted his hand and sucked, and the crystal entered his palm. It contained a mysterious power. At this moment, the people from the Green Cliff Manor were moving forward quickly. The team was arranged into 2 rows, divided into front, middle, and back. What is the great opportunity of Mount Meru? Rumor has it that Prince Shenwu's strength came from Mount Meru. It must be the enlightenment and ritual implement of the ancient thunderclap. Temple. This prince is really lucky. If not for this fortuitous encounter, he would have died long ago. Hurry up and cross the 2 mountain peaks in front. We have to find a temple to settle down before the sky turns dark. Then, we can set up traps around the temple to prevent any sudden attacks from the Fox clan. Yan Ling walked silently with her head lowered. Her face was still as cold as ice, but the Qing Feng sword in her left hand was a little tight. This showed that she was not calm at the moment. He came to look for her and just left like that. That's right. A prince like him could have as many women as he wanted. Why would he take a night of sex with her to heart? The misunderstanding had been resolved, and both he and she had been framed. Then, he would leave. Did he become a passerby? Yan Ling sighed softly. Her heart ached inexplicably like a knife. She had thought of many possible outcomes, but she had never thought of this one. At this moment, she grabbed the white fish pendant that was swaying around her neck. This was her mother's relic. For a moment, she was a little distracted. Senior Sister Yen, Senior Sister Yen. A hand was waving in front of her. Yan Ling reacted and looked at the hand that was waving in front of her. Opposite the hand was a junior brother with sword-like eyebrows and eyes. When the junior brother saw her come back to her senses, he asked, "Senior sister, who was the person who called you out yesterday?" Hearing this, the others became curious. Naturally, Yan Ling would not betray Xia Ji. The appearance of Prince Shenwu in the heart of the demon race would inevitably arouse people's imagination. Therefore, she said, "Just an old friend." Old friend. Unintentionally, it suddenly stirred up memories. It can't be Prince Shenwu, right? A man in the distance suddenly said. I've seen him from afar, and when I think about it carefully, it seems to be him. Yan Ling was stunned and pretended to be confused. What Prince Shenwu? Before Prince Shenwu became a legend, another disciple suddenly said. It said that he was placed under house arrest for having an affair with a demoness. He had to recite scriptures for 3 years. Senior Sister Yen, you were a spy in the demonic sect at that time, right? Chapter 77, Chapter 77, 72. Pursuing the Remnant Enemy, 1. Chapter 77, 72. Pursuing the Remnant Enemy, 1. Yan Ling had stayed in the imperial capital for a full 7 years. She had been raised as a little demoness. To the demonic sect, demonesses were not called demonesses, but saintesses. These saintesses had to have special physiques and beautiful looks, and they could cultivate the special techniques of the demonic sect. 7 years ago, she was only 11 or 12 years old. She appeared in the imperial city's Willow Lane with fireworks and was full of strangeness and curiosity. The past was so oppressive that she could not breathe. It was so oppressive that she felt as if she was about to become a demon. She wanted to escape, so she became a spy to the demon cult. Then, she came to the prosperous city of Wind and Smoke, learned the 4 arts, and secretly learned the foundation of the demon Dao cultivation method. However, she was not the best saintess, nor was she the worst. She was neither high nor low, never in the limelight, nor would she be entrusted with important tasks. She was just an ordinary little demon girl of the demon sect. The story after that was very cliché. A righteous young girl who was undercover in the demon cult had encountered a prince who was hiding his identity on the streets of the imperial city. She had already forgotten how they met. Perhaps it was a heavy rain in midsummer, and the two of them went to hide from the rain. Perhaps they saw a stick of candied haws on the street and reached out to take it. Perhaps she was injured while carrying out a demonic mission and was being hunted down, and he happened to hide her. In short, they knew each other. The demoness and the prince were both young and weak. They both lived in depression and didn't have many friends. After a while, they became familiar with each other. This friendship lasted for 3 years. 3 years later, the two of them rolled on the bed and were framed. This was the end of the story. Yan Ling's thoughts returned. She thought of that old friend of hers. The royal family was indeed full of dragons and phoenixes. 3 years had passed since they last met, and in 3 years, he had gone from an ordinary handsome youth to a legend whose name shook the imperial capital and even the northern lands. Prince Shenwu. How could life be like the first time they met? After 3 years of not seeing each other, you were no longer you. 3 years ago, she could still pretend to be a sister and give a few pointers and care. 3 years later, things had changed. It was as cold as this deep winter, as the world changed. Was it because my heart changed easily, or did we never have any interactions? Everything was just a dream, like dew and lightning. He is Prince Shenwu. A disciple recalled and said in a very certain tone. Are you spouting nonsense because you think I'm easy to bully? Yan Ling said coldly. As she spoke, a cold aura emanated from her body. She knew that the more she argued, the darker it would be, so she did not explain. The disciples fell silent. However, a female disciple suddenly said, Yan Ling, you're indeed a demoness who has been in the demonic sect. You can lie without thinking. When he fought General Nangong, Hero Zhao and I saw him from afar. At first, we couldn't remember, but now it's getting clearer. He's Prince Shenwu. Yan Ling snorted coldly but did not answer. The female disciple mocked, Prince Shenwu has inherited the legacy of Thunderclap Temple, but he's cruel and heartless. Everyone in the north knows about his heresy. What does he want to do by appearing here? Senior sister. Yan, shouldn't there be a limit to how much you can protect your lover? Yan Ling sighed softly. If he is really Prince Shenwu, he can crush us like ants. How can I protect him? When she said this, another disciple was unwilling. Senior sister Yan, I heard that Prince Shenwu had only just obtained the ancient inheritance of Thunder Sound Temple. He was able to deal with General Nangong's 30,000-strong army mostly because of his celestial device. If he used up his celestial device, his trump card would be gone, and his strength would be much weaker. How amazing was a person like him who relied completely on inheritance. How can you say that we are ants to him? That's right. Our Green Cliff Manor Sword Prince is the true heaven's favorite. In my heart, Sword Prince is much stronger than this prince who relied on enlightenment. The disciples started arguing. Lu Feng, the leader of the Green Cliff Manor, listened quietly and thought about the cause and effect. He thought about some details. After all, he was an experienced person. His expression changed a few times and he suddenly said, take off your outer clothes and change into new clothes. Immediately return to the entrance of Mount Meru. This opportunity, L can't get it. Da-da-da-da. Light footsteps sounded in the forest. 2 figures, one in front and one behind, were moving extremely quickly on the winding mountain path paved by the morning light. Xia Ji was in the front, and a beautiful nun was slightly behind him. She was dressed in a white monk robe, and her long hair was wrapped in a hood. Her 2 white fox tails were straightened in the wind. Even though they were moving at high speed, the men and fox could still talk calmly without boiling blood. In terms of strength, Huixin had already reached the Transcendence Realm. Moreover, he was a 2-tailed Transcendence Realm fox demon, so he was not weak. Although Mount Meru has many exits, there are only 2 exits nearby unless you take a detour, Huixin said. The first one in the north had already been sealed by the Tiger clan. The second one was at the foot of the mountain of Thunderclap Temple, where many martial artists were confronting the monks in the temple. Once those people find out that your highness is in an alliance with us, they will definitely speak nonsense and distort the truth. It will be very disadvantageous to your highness. Therefore, we have to rush to the mountain pass in advance to chase those people away and seal the entrance to prevent the martial artists in this mountain from escaping. It will take 5 days to get to the entrance from here. Your highness and I will hurry over. Although it will be fast, we can't guarantee that we will be safe. However, there is still the reclusive northern eagle tribe to the east of this place. With your highness and my speed, we only need half a day's journey to reach it. If we ride on the eagle demon and head west from the sky path, we can cross these towering mountains and reach the entrance of Mount Meru in less than a day. This is the safest way. There was still some time before they reached the eagle clan, so Xia Ji waved behind him. Huixin flashed a few times and appeared beside Xia Ji, walking alongside him. Huixin, I want to ask you something, Xia Ji asked. The beautiful nun hurriedly said, Your Highness, there's no need to be so polite. Although I address you as your highness, I actually consider myself a disciple. Please speak frankly. In this world, strength and power, who is stronger and who is weaker? Huixin pondered for a moment and immediately understood what this person was asking. He was asking about the power system of this world. He was asking about the power structure of this world. No matter how intelligent his highness was, he had never lived for more than 500 years like him. The beautiful nun sorted out her thoughts and said, It is said that in the Middle Ages 1,000 years ago, the division of power was very simple. The first to the fourth realm were the fourth level of Hotian body tempering. It was not difficult to break bones, muscles, skin, warm acupoints, and meridians, break stones, and pull strong bows. However, these 4 realms were mainly to prepare for the Khanate realm. Then, from the 5th stage to the 8th stage, it was the 4th level of the Xiantian Qi refinement realm. At this moment, his orifices were producing true Qi, flowing through his meridians and connecting them one by one. Flying flowers and picking leaves can also hurt people, and every blade of grass and tree can be used as a weapon. Supreme Soul Reversion is the 9th realm and also the highest realm. At this moment, your true Qi is already magnificent, your life spirit is stable, and the comprehension of intent has become the pursuit of many experts. Xia Ji listened quietly. Huixin knew more than a human general who had only lived for a few decades. The beautiful nun paused for a moment before continuing. But 500 years into the modern age, the first great revolution in power came. Mysterious skills are born. It changed everything. When ordinary martial arts were cultivated to the 9th level, it would still be called Force Qi. Even when the 9th level, Return to Soul, reached perfection, it would at most condense some faint shadows. However, when one cultivated to the 9th level of the Xian cultivation, one could condense a Dharma. The Dharma was like a real thing, and it was not something that a phantom could compare to. The power that the Dharma increased was even more powerful. As such, those who could condense Dharma power and those who could not were 2 completely different levels. In the 100 years after that, the various major forces fought toward the Xian cultivation method, but after that, it calmed down a lot. According to the division of the Middle Ages, the law was equivalent to the 10th realm. This realm required more effort than the first to the 9th realm. In addition, it required sufficient mental strength to push the mystic cultivation to the 9th realm. Xian techniques themselves are also very rare. Chapter 78, 73. History. Chapter 78, 73. History. Xian cultivation. Xia Ji thought for a moment and understood that the only way to form a Dharma was through Xian cultivation. In other words, the golden skill beads were all mystic skills. Why did Xian Gong suddenly appear? Huixin replied, 500 years ago, there was an unprecedented snowstorm. The snow fell for 3 months and many people died. At that time, I was still a little fox. After the snow was over, Xian skills were born one after another. It's funny to say that our demon races, Fox Fire 3 Qi, White Fox Immortal Technique, and Heavenly Fox Transformation, have always been cultivation techniques of our demon race. However, they only revealed their appearance as Xian techniques 500 years ago. The words have not changed, but the effects are completely different when they are cultivated. My great-grandma saw some illusions from those mysterious skills, such as the change of scriptures by divine monks, the guidance of mighty people, and so on. However, the illusions only appeared when she first flipped the book and disappeared. Great-grandma said that it might be the scene of the ancient times 3,000 years ago. Xia Ji listened quietly. He felt that the fox's words were much more organized. As expected of a fox that had lived for nearly 500 years. The two of them continued to talk as they flew forward. 200 years ago, the world shook, and the second great revolution of power arrived. A magic tool was born. The situation changed once again. Magical artifacts could hold a lot of things. Anything that contained the power of a divine artifact could be called a magical artifact. To put it simply, Xian formations, divine weapons, and even talismans could be classified into this category. Slowly, the concepts of the various races in the world began to change. Although Xian Qi techniques could dominate, there was a limit to their strength. Each race had their own limits. However, the power of a powerful magic tool exceeded this limit. For example, Monk Kuwen just now. Even though he could condense 9 scorching sun dharma idols with the qi of the 9 suns, he could not resist the Buddha mountain and Buddha river formed by the magic tool at all and was instantly killed. Huixin's eyes revealed a look of recollection. Memories flashed past her eyes as she continued to speak. This time, the heaven and earth-killing tribulation happened 3,000 years after the ancient era. This was also the first time that a species described in ancient times had appeared. For example, the frost giants, a race that only existed in books and legends, had never appeared before. At the very least, I had never heard of them in the past 500 years. These frost giants were not good at fighting, and they were not brave either. Otherwise, in this deep winter season, they would cause even more disasters to this land. There were still many ancient species with powerful bloodlines. Some races were already at the peak of other races' cultivation when they were born. He could only hope that there would not be a large-scale bloodline awakening this time. Otherwise, this killing tribulation will be unprecedentedly large. Huixin sighed softly. But if I'm unlucky enough to be right, then this might be the third great change in power since the Middle Ages. Blood, pulse, out of the world. However, the killing tribulation has yet to completely descend, and everything is still in its infancy, so this poor nun is only guessing. Xia Ji sorted out his thoughts. The antiquity age was 3,000 years ago. This era seemed to be the era of immortals, Buddhas, demons, and devils. There were many books that recorded an unprecedented war, as well as many mythical stories such as the boiling river, the shift of the earth's crust, and the disappearance of the sun and moon. After more than 2,000 years of the Middle Ages, this world seemed to be in an era of low-level martial arts and middle-level martial arts. The division of postnatal and connate proved this point. And the few great revolutions that changed power. The first was Xian cultivation. The second was magic tools. The third was bloodline. Xia Ji thought of his avatar, which was 8 feet tall, 24 heads, and 18 hands. This Dharmakaya did not seem real, but it was real. Then, with the Dharmakaya, was his bloodline still human? Could this be considered a different kind of bloodline transformation? And 9 was the limit of a human, but if he changed his blood, would he be able to break through this limit and enter a new realm? 11th realm. What about the forces? Xia Ji continued to ask. Which one is stronger? 200 years ago, there was a power map, Huixin replied. It is said that Buddha has 10 ancient temples, Taoism has 10 blessed lands, and Confucianism has 10 inheritances. There were 21 holy lands in total, 7 of them were righteous, 8 were demonic, and the rest were divided into 6. There are also 21 dangerous places, which contain strange species and have different caves. They are strange and unpredictable, indescribable. The dynasty had changed once 500 years ago. The previous dynasty was Yu, and now it was Shang. Alien tribes like Guifang, Turk, Rakshasa, Quanrong, and many other small tribes and countries are scattered across the divine continent, as well as the islands, floating islands, and even underwater islands. Do you still have the power map? Huixin shook his head. This album only appeared for 7 days. The follow-up list had yet to be published before it completely disappeared. The person who made the album is said to be called GZ. He also disappeared. If great-grandma hadn't seen the first page of the list, she wouldn't have known about it. Over the years, I have also gone to investigate out of curiosity and collected information. I have probably gained some knowledge and gains. The beautiful nun thought for a moment, sorted out her thoughts, and said, "No one knows who is who in this world." The beautiful nun said, for example, the Great Light Temple. They have dojos and worship the Great Sun Buddha. However, these dojos are not the real Great Light Temple. Or rather, it was not the Great Light Temple that had high-level combat strength. At the very least, Monk Kuwen was definitely not from those dojos. But where was the real Great Light Temple? How to get there? This is all a mystery. Even the abbots of the dojos with the signboard of the Great Light Temple did not know. Later on, I understood that this world was very dangerous, so after great-grandma died 200 years ago, I took the demon race and hid. The northern demon race was dominated by the fox and tiger races. Slowly, the demons of all races also came, known as the 81 Roads. If it wasn't for Qi Shanjuan's betrayal, the Monk of Light wouldn't have known where we were. These are all hidden countries within the country. She sighed softly. As far as I know, there are some forces that have terrifying ancient heritage sites. After the death of their ancestors, they can retain their power in some way and then pass it on to their descendants through these heritage sites. The descendants continue to cultivate on top of their original power and leave behind even stronger heritage after death. This kind of overlapping method is very terrifying in theory. The Saraira that Kuwen left behind after his death was very likely to be the preservation of a kind of power. In other words, as long as he found the Great Light Temple and used the ancient inheritance place, he could absorb this Saraira. Whoever absorbed it could directly possess the power of 9 levels of 9 suns true Qi. If such a relic is left outside, the Great Light Temple will probably send follow-up experts to investigate. This is the tip of the iceberg that I have seen in the past 500 years. I hope it can be of some help to your highness. The Eagle clan of the northern lands was located in the precipice. Even if someone accidentally entered this place, they would not be discovered. Eagle demons were naturally different from eagles. Their nests were no longer made of branches, withered grass, and fur. Instead, they had a room structure that was similar to that of humans. However, these rooms were all in caves on cliffs. Perhaps only those who accidentally fell off the cliff would see these dark caves before they died and guess what was inside. The 2 towering cliffs formed the residence of the Northern Eagle clan. There was also a mountain peak between the cliffs. The mountain peak stood on the rapid river in the deep valley. Other than flying, it was impossible to reach it. This peak was where the Eagle clan's meeting hall was. Huaxin walked to the edge of the cliff and directly shouted, "Eagle King, the Fox clan's Huaxin is here to visit. Please come out and meet him." As soon as he finished speaking, a huge eagle flew over from afar. The eagle recognized Huaxin and spread its wings. It crouched down and said respectfully, "Fox King, please come up." Huaxin let Xia Ji get on the eagle's body first before she walked up. The giant eagle smelled the scent of humans and glanced at Xia Ji. Before he could say anything, Huaxin said, "Little eagle, you can just bring us to the clan. This is an honored guest." The giant eagle didn't say much. It let out a long cry, turned around, spread its wings, and rushed into the clouds. It carried the men and the fox up the mountain above the abyss. Chapter 79, 74. Drawing a bow with ink, hurting your heart. Chapter 79, 74. Drawing a bow with ink, hurting your heart. Not long after, the giant eagle slowly descended. A man and a fox walked down from the eagle's wings. Soon, 2 girls, dressed in white walked out and invited the 2 of them to sit down. They served a basin of mountain fruits and looked at Xia Ji curiously. It was quite a novelty for humans to come to the demon race. Not long after, a golden bird flew over from the distant sky and landed on the high platform. A figure with folded wings began to change, turning into a tall man with a hooked nose and a golden robe. His gaze was sharp as he swept his gaze across the 2 people sitting beside the stone platform and shouted, "Fox! King Huaxin, although I have agreed to ally with the 9th princess of the great Shang royal family to survive this calamity, I am still in the midst of preparations. I don't want to get involved in this too early. Please return." The seventh prince and I came here personally. Is this how the Eagle King receives us? Huaxin asked. What does the Fox King want? The Eagle King asked with an arrogant expression. Huaxin said, send 2 clansmen to send me and the seventh prince to the entrance of Mount Meru. Then, send people to patrol the nearby mountains. If you find any Jianghu people fleeing, capture them if you can. If you can't, kill them. The Eagle King's eyes turned cold. The eagle was a proud person and would not allow others to give him pointers. If it was a demon from his tribe who said that, he would have punished her long ago. However, the Fox King in front of him was quite famous in the northern lands. Moreover, he had also agreed to the alliance. It was just that the killing tribulation was not clear yet. He really did not want to get involved so early, but it was not appropriate to directly reject it. His sharp eyes swept across the 2 of them and suddenly landed on Xia Ji. He laughed and said, "It's not impossible for my Eagle clan to enter now, but I wonder if the seventh prince can show me some of his strength. Your Highness, are you good at sabers, swords, or cudgels? Take one and dance in this open space. If you are good, then I will send an eagle demon to send you to the entrance of Mount Meru." As soon as he said this, Huaxin's expression immediately turned cold. These words seemed peaceful, but they were full of insult. Swords, knives, and sticks. Did he think that His Highness was a circus performer? The beautiful nun's face was cold as she said loudly, "Looks like the Eagle King has been in seclusion for a long time and doesn't even know what's going on outside." Seventh Highness. Xia Ji raised his hand, signaling her to stop talking. He turned his head to look at the golden-robed Eagle King on the high platform. The Eagle King looked back at him fearlessly. His gaze was like a sharp sword that pierced through the air. However, it was destined to only pierce into the calm sea, and not even a splash could be made. The Eagle King's lips curled up as he laughed out loud. "Your Highness is the wiser one. What weapon is your specialty? Do you have a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone?" Xia Ji asked lightly. Brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. The Eagle King was stunned. Why did he need a brush and ink? Could it be that this prince in front of him was good at painting or calligraphy? Did he want to conquer him through the brush and ink so that he would be willing to help him after seeing it? He laughed coldly in his heart and made up his mind. No matter what the prince drew, he would say, although it's good, it's not that good. After making up his mind, the golden-robed Eagle King waved his hand and shouted, "Get the brush and ink." Although the Eagle clan was a demon clan, there were also eagle demons who transformed into human beings and went to human towns that were not heavily guarded to buy some supplies. Then, they could bring them back by flying. It was very convenient. As for the concept of what is money, why can't we just rob it? Why should we spend it? Most of it was passed down from the Fox clan. Many fox spirits of the Fox clan would even write books such as, "Those Days I Lived in the Human City," "A Few Things That Scholar and I Have to Talk About, That Night," and so on. These books were written in the demon language and were widely circulated in the northern lands. They were very popular with the demons, so many demons would call the fox spirits teachers. Very soon, the Eagle clan's young lady, who was filled with an exotic yet unromantic air, came up with a brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. She placed them on the stone table in front of Xia Ji. Xia Ji picked up his brush and dipped it in ink. Without even looking, he drew a stroke. The brush pressed heavily on the paper, and then suddenly lifted, forming an extremely powerful stroke. It pierced straight into the sky with great power. The eagle demons waited curiously, ready to see what the human prince was going to draw. However, Xia Ji only drew one stroke before putting it aside. Then, he looked at the eagle girl who had not gone far and said, "Send it over." The eagle clan girl took the paper and handed it over. She glanced at the strokes. There was nothing special. What was this human prince thinking? The golden-robed eagle king laughed in its heart. It had already thought of a reason to reject him. And then, the painting that could not even be called a painting was placed in front of him. He looked down and said. However, with just one glance, he felt his gaze sink in. That stroke was like a sharp arrow condensed from death, and the Xian paper was like a vast sea of clouds. The arrow broke through the layers of wind and clouds, wanting to pierce through the paper. This arrow was shocking. The golden-robed Eagle King recalled the most terrifying memory in his heart. Hundreds of years ago. He wasn't the Eagle King yet, so he went out with his companions to train. It was very smooth before, but when he returned to his tribe, he encountered a sharpshooter from the human world. The sharpshooter was very terrifying. He bent his bow and shot arrows, and every arrow hit the target. No matter how high the eagles flew, those arrows could actually break through the clouds and accurately hit their bodies. His companions died tragically one by one as they fell from the sky. He was also scared out of his wits and fled with all his might. At this moment, it heard the sound of a bow being drawn. At the same time, a dense killing intent assaulted its face, as if death had descended in an instant. The young Eagle King was so frightened that it fell from the sky. Fortunately, it had already flown over a mountain ridge and landed in the mountains on the other side. However, it realized that it had not been hit by an arrow. It turned out that the sharpshooter's quiver had no arrows left. When he pulled, he had only pulled an empty string. Just the empty string had already made him a frightened bird. After it had luckily survived that time. However, this matter had become a dead knot in his heart. After that, during the cultivation process, it became a demon barrier in his heart. However, in the process of becoming a king, this demonic barrier had almost disappeared. He dared to guarantee that even if the sharpshooter pulled the bow in front of him, he would no longer be afraid. However, this stroke directly tore through its defenses. It turned into the arrow of the previous godly archer, breaking through the clouds and bringing death to it. The golden-robed Eagle King felt his soul jolt. Cold sweat dripped down his forehead, and his body trembled. Then, with a loud thud, he fell from the position of the Eagle tribe leader. He rolled over a few steps and fell to the ground, unable to get up. His eyes were still filled with fear. Xiaji grabbed a mountain fruit in front of him and took a bite. It was sour and sweet. He rubbed his forehead. This random stroke was not simple. As he looked at Eagle King, he used Maitreya Zen to reflect Eagle King's delusions and understood the fear rooted in the depths of his memories. Then, when he put down his pen, he used the broken style of Dipankara Zen. With just a lift, he could break his mind. If it wasn't for the fact that he had held back, the Eagle King would have already spat out a mouthful of blood. Everyone was silent. Even Huaxin couldn't understand what was going on. He turned his head and looked at Xiaji carefully as if he was looking at an immortal. With just one stroke, he scared the Eagle King to death. He could not understand such an immortal's operation. However, the Eagle King, who was prostrating on the ground, had a clear understanding of what level the seventh prince of Great Shang was. He took a few deep breaths before he could speak. Still. Please help me, Your Highness, I'm willing to assist you with all my might. Your Highness. At this moment, he only felt that his mind was about to shatter. The fear that had been sealed up was like an awakening of his inner demon. It was surging against the dam of his heart. If this dam was broken, the consequences would be unimaginable. The one who tied the knot must untie the knot. His Highness could shock his soul with a single stroke, so he would definitely be able to help him. Relax your mind, Xiaji said. Listen to me recite a scripture. Xiaji recalled the one he had read the most and said, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva. After practicing the deep prajnaparamita for a long time, he saw that the 5 skandhas were empty and overcome all hardships. As Xiaji read, the golden-robed Eagle King became more and more immersed in his reading, and his fear slowly disappeared. He felt a vast spiritual power coming from the sky, and he was also sucked into this power, becoming a tributary. Once he finished reciting, Eagle King converted to Xiaji. He let out a sigh of relief and raised his head. The arrogance in his eyes had completely disappeared, revealing reverence. When he looked at the Fox King again, Huaxin put his palms together and smiled as he shouted, Fellow Taoist. Part 7 of the series ends here. Thank you for watching and listening. If you find it interesting, please give us a like, a comment and a subscription so that we have the motivation to make the next videos.